Welcome to the First Baptist Church of Aurora YouTube channel. We're so glad you chose to worship with us today. Before the sermon starts, there are a few things we'd like to make sure you're aware of. Every Sunday, we have a worship service starting at about 10:15. We'd love to have you join us. If you'd like to learn more about our worship service, look into other things that are happening at the church, or donate to the church, you can do so by visiting the church website, by going to aurorabaptist.org, or by following the link in the description.
Out the back with Miss Teresa. She will take you off to Children's Church.
Thank you. This is a blessed day. We are privileged to have a missionary with us. I've been corresponding with her off and on for a few weeks, and Sarah has been very gracious to accept our invitation to come and speak to us about her work on the mission field. So this is a real missionary. And she serves as Regional Coordinator of Education in Iberoamerica, the Caribbean area, Mexico, and all those countries down there, and works with Barbara Bolick. And we are familiar with Barbara's work, and it's just unbelievable what they can do with these children. And what they can teach them and how they can learn how to do for themselves, and also learn about the loving power that Jesus can have on their lives. So that's enough words for me. So I'm going to give the rest of the words to Sarah. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you.
And here is your...
Oh, thank you. Good morning. It is a blessing to be here with all of you. I want to thank you on behalf of International Ministries and myself for the invitation to come and share on this special ABW Sunday. It is truly a blessing and truly an honor. Next slide, please. I'd like to introduce you to my family. This is my beautiful family. My husband and I have 4 children. The two oldest are rather successfully adulting on their own, which means they're living independently in their own apartment, have full-time jobs, paying all their bills 99% of the time. So, praise God, right? They are 22 and 19, so for a 19 and 22-year-old to be doing that, we are very proud of those 2 kids. We are also very proud of our younger 2. Our youngest boy is a senior this year. He has dreams of playing soccer professionally. We'll just see how that plays out. And our youngest is in 8th grade, and so currently we have 2 at home for a little while longer. My husband and I were called to missions about 12 years ago. My husband was on a short-term mission trip to the jungles of Peru, in the Amazon jungle. So the Amazon rainfall in the song of the Newsboys song, that made me smile even bigger because I've experienced those rainfalls in the Amazon, and it's truly a rainfall that you've never experienced before. It's just truly different. So God spoke to my husband on that mission trip. And what he told God was, okay, God, if that's what you want for my family, I will say yes, but I'm not going to tell my wife anything. So I was in Ohio. My husband was in Peru. We really didn't talk. We just sent a couple emails. So I really didn't know what was going on other than he was still alive and safe. And so probably shortly after that time when my husband told God, tell my wife, God spoke to me and gave me a vision of our family working together, ministering together on the mission field. And I was just kind of like, wow, really, God? I'm not so sure about this. Because you see, back then, I was a very shy person. One could have never gotten me to come to a church by myself and speak during the sermon slot and share my personal life, my call to missions, and share from my heart. And so God has truly done a work in my life through missions. But what I did with what God gave me in that moment was as my husband likes to say, I cherished it, just like Mary cherished what God showed her about her son. And a year later, we both went to Peru on a short-term trip, and God spoke to both of us again, separately, in the same way. And about a month after we got back, I was just finally like, okay, God, I guess now's the time I should tell my husband what you've been telling me. And my husband was very relieved, and he likes to jokingly say, well, it's about time you told me, because God's been telling me the same thing. And it was truly God's timing. You know, when God calls one to something, there's a preparation time. And I would say a processing time. You know, God isn't just going to call you and then tomorrow you're going and doing. It does happen, but it's very rare. And so I like to say that year, 13, 14, 15 months, that was preparation time. And then we had about a year's worth of more preparation time when we contacted International Ministries, went through their intensive, extensive interview process to become missionaries with International Ministries. We like to not use the term missionary anymore as our official title, but we rather we are global servants. So we're serving globally, doing God's mission. I don't care if you call me a missionary, I don't care if you call me a global servant, they both mean the same to me. And a lot of folks understand what a missionary is better than a global servant. And so God called us to Costa Rica, where we did language school, so we studied Spanish for a whole year. And then we did ministry there with the Baptist pastors for 3 more years. So we were in Costa Rica for about 4 years. Came home for our year of home assignment. God redirected our steps to go to Mexico City. However, about 3 months before we were supposed to leave for Mexico City, COVID hit and the world shut down. So we were stuck in the U.S. for almost a whole nother year before we went to Mexico City. And at that time, we were living in rural Pennsylvania. And so it's very different than Mexico City, which is one of the 10th largest cities in the world, where everything was still shut down. So we went from a place that had reopened up months ago to a place that was shut down again. And that was very difficult for our children. 3 of our children were with us when we made that move. And kids are going off to college. And so we really wrestled with God and talked with our area director and realized through our struggles, basically personal struggles, I want to say them, and just the complications that COVID had given our family. I know COVID gave everybody complicated situations. We decided that for what would be best for our children is that we stayed stateside. And so we explored what could that look like if we stay with International Ministries. And so very prayerfully through many conversations, it boiled down to my husband went back into the pastorate. He is now the senior pastor at First Baptist Church in Jeffersonville, Indiana, so down by the river by Louisville. And I stayed on and staying on with International Ministries in this new role. And so how that works is with International Ministries, global servants or missionaries are assigned either to a specific need or to a specific country. In my case, I am assigned to a specific need. And what that gives me is the freedom to live pretty much wherever I want. So since my husband's job is in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and I would like to stay married to my husband. I have chosen to live in the U.S. in Jeffersonville, Indiana with my husband and 2 of our 4 children. So that's kind of the abridged version of our call to missions, my call to missions. If you could go to the next slide, please. If you would like to connect with me, so if you haven't put your email on the clipboard, I encourage you to do that. I send out 1 email at most a month. Sometimes it's 1 every 2 months. Just depends on how busy my schedule is. So I will not inundate your inbox with emails or anything else. The email is a way to stay up to date on a monthly, bi-monthly basis on what is going on in my ministry. What am I doing? Where am I going? What's God doing? That's pretty much what it is. If you want to stay in touch with my ministry a little bit more closely, you can go on social media sites, Facebook or Instagram. My pages, both pages are the same name, Uno Missions. Uno is Spanish for one, so one mission. That's the translation of that. So if you can't read the slides, I have a display table out in the I'm not sure what you call the entrance area. Each church, the foyer, each church has a different name for it. There's QR codes out there, so if you like QR codes better, you can do that after service. My prayer cards were with the clipboards. If you didn't get one of those and you want one, there's more on the display table. It has my ministry description, which if you want to go to the next slide, that's the next slide, I do believe. Yes. It also, on the back, is another way to connect with me, to partner with me, either through getting mailing updates, email updates, or if you would like to financially support my ministry, there's a way to do that. Another piece is on my display table, there are other pieces of information about me and my ministry that I am not touching on in-depthly during today's presentation. And if you like to read, there are little bookmarks, complimentary of International Ministries, on my table. You are welcome to take one of the bookmarks. So, as a regional coordinator for education in Iberoamerica and the Caribbean. So what is Iberoamerica and the Caribbean? I'm sure most of you know what the Caribbean is, but Iberoamerica is it's a term that's not used very widely. It basically means any Spanish-speaking country. So from Spain to Mexico to Chile to Bolivia to Brazil, Portuguese-speaking countries, so Portugal and Brazil are also included in Iberoamerica. That is where I do ministry. There's 22 different Spanish-speaking countries in that area. And so my previous training before going on the mission field was in education. I was a French teacher. So that is why my specialty area of ministry is in education. It is PK through 12 education. And another term to use, which is more easily understandable, is Latin America. So from my experience and my passion to empower, equip, and see God's children grow in their knowledge of our Creator, while gaining skills that will enable them to live as well-equipped adults in the world, is what will be the roots of my ministry. And being able to integrate my education, my faith, and calling as a missionary or global servant is what has me excited about my role as a regional coordinator for education. And I just stepped into this role last November. So it's still pretty new to me. I'm still figuring it out. I'm building relationships and all that good stuff. Next slide, please. So why education in Latin America? Why education? Why is that a ministry area? Because it is huge need. Many of the Baptist churches in Latin America have ministries, a ministry that is a school, that is a pre-kindergarten through high school as a ministry out of their church. And so it is a vital need. Some statistics, if you're a statistics person, the words back there are really tiny, but I think you can read those. 4 out of 5 children will not be able to understand a simple text. So kids who do actually graduate from high school in Latin America do not have the same level of reading comprehension, academic understanding as a youth from a public school here in America will have. There are private versus public schools, just like we have. However, there is a drastic difference between the level of education that the children will receive in either of those schools. For example, in a public school in Mexico, children typically go for about 3 hours in the morning or for 3 hours in the afternoon. So you think about that compared to how long our children are in school here in America. And that, to me, that's pretty plain, pretty basic, the difference in the level of education that these kids are going to receive. On top of that, many of the teachers in the public and even some of the private schools, they are not actually trained educators or even have a degree in the area that they're teaching. They just have a desire to teach children and have a basic high school education and are willing to do the job. Survival is many times the priority in many of the communities where these schools are at. So it's food and water and having a warm bed to sleep in, having other basic necessities, then education. The average public school in Latin America is about 2.5 years behind academically. And the lack of academic support resources, poverty, attendance rates, less experience and less well-trained educators is also another need, another reason why I am in this role. Next slide, please. So as I stated before, I work with multiple partners. So here's just a little map to give you an idea of where I've already been in the past 10 months. So all those red dots is where I have been, minus the Dominican Republic. I've not been there yet, but I have a trip planned tentatively to go there. So let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different little bubbles there. So I've met a lot of ministry partners, a lot of people who I've started to build relationship with, and have a lot of exciting ministry opportunities that I'm going to share some of them with you today. Next slide, please. So one of the first ministries that I visited was a ministry called ABW. They are located in the outskirts of Mexico City, I actually was able to start working with them while my family lived in Mexico City, so I already have a little bit of relationship established with them. So it was very exciting when God did this whole redirection with our family, and I was able to reconnect with this ministry that I had already started working with. So I visited this remarkable ministry center in a tiny little community called Tepipile. And this center emerged during the pandemic. They opened their doors during the pandemic. And it quickly became a beacon of hope for the impoverished community that it serves. This community is characterized by extreme poverty and makeshift homes constructed of wood, plastic, cardboard, or just a few cinder blocks. Many of the homes have dirt floors, they don't have electricity, they don't have running water or sewage. And the daily struggle is to survive. It's to, where's my next meal coming from? And for some of the children in this community, it is also, will mom or dad come back home today? Many of the families rely on wood for fuel, for cooking, and most mothers work on the streets. And I'm not implying prostitution in that sense. It is, they sell snacks. They bag up little snacks like popcorn or chips, and they sell those for 50 cents. So they're barely making much profit on that. Maybe $2 a day is what they take home at the end of the day to feed their family. And so if they have children, what do they do with their kids while they're out working, trying to provide for their family? So it's a need, and ABW, the ministry center, has seen these needs, and they are beginning to address those needs within this community. This ministry provides a comprehensive, if you could just go through the slides slowly, there's like 4 for this while I talk about it, that'd be great. ABW provides a comprehensive support, including education, food, medical care, financial assistance. They have a vitamin program. And the center doesn't just focus on the children's physical needs, but they also nurture emotional intelligence, teaching nonviolent communication. In particular, children who were previously neglected have received psychological and speech therapy, allowing them to find their voices and to begin to thrive. One of the examples of this is Maria and her children. She is a mother of 4, and she found hope through this ministry center. 2 of her children, 2 of her boys, Abraham and Raphael, they benefited immensely from the center's care and education. This is Maria, who is up on the slide right now with her 2 boys. Abraham, who initially, when he came to the center, he was nonverbal, and nobody knew why, until a visiting dentist who was giving dental checkups to the children discovered that Abraham was severely tongue-tied. And once that was known, they put the interventions in place, gave him a tongue-tie release, gave him speech therapy, and now that young boy, I think he's 8, he speaks nonstop. Nonstop. I got to see him, I got to interact with him. You can definitely tell he does have a bit of a speech impediment, but that doesn't stop him. He speaks nonstop, and he is just a joy to be around. ABW also gave Maria psychological support that she needed in that time in her life, as well as parenting training, and empowered her to seek employment and to build a better life for her family. She still lives in the community and says that she has hope through the ministry of ABW for a better future for her children. And she is so full of joy when she talks about this ministry center. One way that I am walking alongside this ministry and helping them indirectly so that they can do all of this other stuff is they are creating an ESL program, English as a Second Language program. And I have been consulting with their English ESL teachers, with their curriculum, helping their ESL teacher with his English to improve his spoken English, just giving him ideas of how he can integrate English more into his curriculum rather just, we teach English twice a week for 30 minutes each time. Okay, that's great. What else can we do? We talk about ideas, and he gets so excited, and the 4 months that I've worked with him, he has gone from a shy, timid, unsure teacher to a teacher who is now having confidence, not just in his ability to teach and teach English, but in his ability in the English language. So when you support my ministry, you in turn are supporting a ministry like ABW. And your financial support is instrumental in sustaining and growing this vital mission, in this case in the outskirts of Mexico City, offering education, hope, and a brighter future to vulnerable children and families. Next slide, please. So, this you should be familiar with a little bit, Talita Kumi Girls Club. This is Barbara Bullock's, we'll just call it her baby, because she has, in the past year or 15 months, has implemented this program in, I think it's 5 different countries throughout Latin America. So what is Talita Kumi Girls Club? It is a club for girls ages 8 to 12 that teaches the virtues of faith, hope, love, courage, moderation, justice, and wisdom. The program combines mentoring, relationships, learning activities, and service opportunities. So how am I coming alongside Barb in the implementation of the Talita Kumi Girls Club? My side is going to be on the academic side, because what we've known, just one throughout history is that kids are typically behind in schools in Latin America. Now, post-pandemic, where in Latin America, public schools shut down completely for 2 whole years. The kids had literally nothing. There were very few kids in Latin America in the public schools who actually had some sort of academic gain or teaching or learning opportunities during those 2 years. And what the schools did is, for example, if a child was in first grade when the pandemic hit, when the schools reopened, that child was put in third grade. So just imagine, first grade, you're barely able to read, and then you're put into third grade, where you should be reading chapter books. Kids are lost. Kids are discouraged. They don't want to learn because they can't understand. Just think, if I gave this in Spanish, which I could do, would you guys be engaged? Would you be interested? No. Bueno, está bien. Una persona. One person could. All right? But everybody else would be lost. Okay? That's how these kids feel. It's in their own language, but they're lost. And so, within these girls' clubs, the literacy gap is impeding the growth that these girls can have through this club. So, I'm doing 2 things. I am creating a literacy training seminar so that I can train the local leaders of the girls' clubs to be reading mentors. Okay? Another thing is, it's one thing to read, but it's another thing to teach someone to read. If you don't understand the methodology behind reading, you really can't teach someone successfully or well how to read, whether it's in English or in Spanish. So I am creating that seminar, and I will be giving it to all of the leaders of all of these girls' clubs. And there's about 50 clubs right now, and some of the clubs have the same leaders, thankfully. So that's a big project. That's probably going to take me a couple years to fully teach and train all of these leaders. The other piece, you can go to the next slide for, well, that's just a picture. But I'll speak on it quickly. I jumped ahead in my brain. So these are pictures from the Talita Kumi's Girls Clubs that I got to visit in August in Nicaragua. It was incredible. It was an incredible gift to be able to be with these young girls and to see them growing in who they are, their self-confidence, and what this program truly does. The picture on your left, where the one girl is showing me her book, this girl basically gave her testimony to us, those of us who were visiting, and she said, a year ago, I was angry, I hated my sisters, I was just grumpy all the time, and I had no self-confidence. I didn't like who I was. And now, and she's saying all this with joy. You can see it's genuine joy that God has changed her heart, her mind. She says, I'm happy. I get along with my sisters. I am no longer as angry as I've been. We all struggle with anger and frustration. But she's not as angry as she once was. And I think she's 12. So, as a 12-year-old girl, that's a pretty turbulent age for any girl. And she says, I have more self-confidence in who I am. My self-esteem is a lot higher now, a year later, after going through this club. And all the girls can't wait to start the second year. And that's exciting. This wasn't planned in my little talk here in my notes, but at this club, one of the youngest girls showed up late. And when she showed up and her dad dropped her off, she acted like she didn't want to be there, like she didn't want to come in and join the girls. And so the leader welcomed her in, got her seat, got her snack, gave her a hug, told her she was loved and wanted and welcomed here, and she's so happy that she's here. And about 10 minutes later, that little girl's demeanor changed from being shy and shut down, not wanting to look at anyone, to she was up, smiling, running around, interacting with the other girls. And we didn't specifically ask her, but what the leaders and I talked about was that she was probably embarrassed that she was late to the club and sad that she missed today's lesson. That's how much it's like an hour or 2 hours that these girls are together. And it means that much to these girls, because she told the leader, I was ready to come at this time, and my dad didn't bring me till obviously late. So she was upset that she was late. Next slide. So this is the other part where I'm going to be involved with Talita Kumi Girls Club. It's also the abbreviation TCGC, is I have created a project for mini libraries for each of the clubs, about 60 to 70 books in Spanish of various reading levels. Most of the books come from Scholastic. A lot of the books are about women heroes. A lot of the books are complementary to the curriculum that is taught to the girls, so it's an added extra of academic support and also added curriculum support. It will just add to what the club is already giving for the girls, but it's also going to give the leaders physical books in hand to help the girls with their reading comprehension and fluency. So that is in the works. It's been approved, but it's not on the IM website yet, International Ministries website yet, but it will be soon. If you signed up to get my emails, you'll be one of the first to know when it is on the site, and funds can be donated to it. Next slide, please. Another ministry that I have worked with and have visited is it's another ministry out of a church. It's a grade school, PK through 6. It's called Didaque, and is located in Tijuana, Mexico. And the other ministry that I'm connecting them with is Deborah's House. Deborah's House is it's a home of refuge for women and children who are victims of domestic violence. The picture of the kids is from the school. I cannot show any pictures from Deborah's House because it's a safe place for them. So we don't want to put any of their pictures on anything because it endangers their life. It also compromises the ministry. So what am I doing with these two? There's a vital need for the children in Deborah's House because currently, while they are there, they cannot be enrolled in a public school. Why? Why not? It's a good question. Because if they're enrolled, both mom and dad's information needs to go on the enrollment papers, and then what can happen? Dad can find out where their child is enrolled, and dad can take that child from that school wherever he wants. And so these children and the mom has already been taken from a dangerous situation, and so Deborah's House does everything that they can to protect the family and the children, to keep them safe, so that they can heal and they can grow and they can become empowered, and that the women can support themselves and their children, because they don't stay at Deborah's House forever. Some of them are there for 4 weeks, some 3 months, some 6 months. Some women are there with their children for a whole year. And so again, the kids aren't getting schooling. They have access to books and papers and pens, but there's no formal educational time. And so what we're doing is we're trying to figure out, okay, how can we have a teacher or a tutor from the Didaque school come and teach these kids, kind of like a homeschool tutoring program, so that the children are receiving some sort of education. And so again, this is a project. It's not on the website yet. It's in the process of approval, and so it'll be there soon. And it's a vital need because, again, kids who aren't getting education are going to fall behind, and if they're not advancing academically, they're less likely to finish high school. And if they don't finish high school, they can't even get a job as a cashier at a Walmart or the local grocery store. You have to have your high school diploma to get a job, to go on to get any type of certification or continuing education. Next slide, please. So in August, I was able to visit the Baptist schools in El Salvador. So I have a question for you all. How many of you knew that the American Baptist churches, or international ministries, has been in relationship with 2 schools in particular in El Salvador for over 100 years. Did anyone know that? I didn't either, till I went. Actually, I didn't know till my husband went last year, and he told me. But that's pretty incredible that 100 years ago, American Baptist International Ministries helped start and found and fund these schools in El Salvador. They are Baptist schools. They do a Christian Bible-based curriculum. And honestly, they're thriving. They're doing very well. They're fairly self-sufficient, which is awesome. What else do I want to say about this? Okay, this is really cool. So we all know how the pandemic shut places down, everything down. And sadly, the pandemic comes back up and it comes back up. But what's truly inspiring is how these 2 schools weathered the storms that the pandemic gave them, basically. And they were able to remain faithful to their mission. They shared their stories with me of their triumph over adversity, and it's evident that God's grace was abundant throughout that time. They were able to provide internet for students who didn't have it. They were able to pay their teachers their full salary the entire time during the pandemic for 2 years. And they're stepping out in faith and just gave their teachers a raise this school year. And they only increased tuition by $5. That's incredible. They really didn't lose any students or families throughout the pandemic. All of their students received the education that they would have, they would have in person. The second year of the pandemic, they did kind of like the hybrid version. And this year, they reopened fully. And the cool thing is that one of the schools just implemented an ESL program. So English as a Second Language program. And they're starting it with the pre-K through first grade this first year. And they have a very good strategic plan of how they're going to continue to introduce it so that within 4 or 5 years, the entire school will be bilingual. And they are writing their own ESL curriculum. And they showed me their curriculum. It's very well written. I have offered to read over it, find any grammatical errors, any misspellings, because I know in my Spanish, I could not write a book and know it would be 100% correct. So I would want a native person, if I was writing a book in Spanish, to go over it and make those corrections. So it's super exciting that they are doing this and that they are thriving and they are moving ahead. Next February, the one school is celebrating 100 years, and this year, the other school has been around for 104 years. So that's really exciting. Another thing that they want to do is, since their teachers, not all of them are trained ESL teachers, is I am in talks with them about what can we do? Can I bring some teachers to help train their teachers, or can their teachers come here and just sit in a classroom for a week and observe and talk with the teacher? So it's an exciting opportunity that's being explored. If you're a teacher and that sparks interest, talk to me after service. Next slide, please. I also went to Nicaragua in August, and during that time I had the privilege of visiting 2 Baptist grade schools. One's located in Managua, which is the capital of Nicaragua, and the other is located in Mazatepe, which is about an hour outside of the capital. The school in the capital is flourishing. It was impressive. I was thoroughly impressed by it. Honestly, I don't think I could offer them anything of any value. That's how well they're doing. But it's just neat to just have that relationship, to have that resource. And the other school, they are hosting a Tali Takumi Girls Club program. and they also have numerous challenges and pressing needs. They are not as financially well off as the school in the capital. And during my visit, I had the chance to engage both the school teachers and the Talita Kumi Girls Club leaders. And their joy and their excitement of their dedication to the girls in the schools, it was encouraging. I also had a meaningful conversation with the school's director and had the chance to explore the school grounds. This institution is doing its best to provide the children with the best education possible with what they have. However, many of the teachers lack formal training in education. Most have only completed high school or have done a certificate of study. And the director expressed high interest in the literacy training seminar that I am preparing for the Talita Kumi Girls Club. And she has asked me if once that's ready and when I'm in Nicaragua next, if I would give that for her teachers. And she said I could probably get all of my teachers plus a bunch of other teachers from the public schools in the community. Basically about 50 teachers, she said, she could get out to come to that seminar. So training is a huge need for that school, and just literacy training is just one piece of that for that school. Physical grounds challenges that they face, all of their bathrooms need remodeled. They are lacking furniture, chairs, and little tables for their kids in the classrooms. They are lacking resources, like they have little emotion balls, like emojis, and those work well with the children. And they're like, this is what we have, we need more. That's just one example of what they need. I'm sure they need markers and pens and pencils and paper and books and just the basics. And so I will continue to be in conversation with the director and see where God leads with all of that and what God can provide for this school. Next slide, please. So Eduk, Didaque, Deborah's House, the Baptist grade schools in El Salvador, Nicaragua, and the Talita Kumi Girls Club are valued ministry partners with whom I am connected. Some of them I am in longer relationship with than others, and others I am just beginning. So my role involves establishing relationships and fostering trust by attentively listening to their unique needs and their stories. That's where all relationship begins. When I'm invited, I actively engage and collaborate with them to enhance and support their educational initiatives. In this role as a regional coordinator for education, I will travel about 4 times, roughly a year. I will visit each trip 1 partner or 2 partners. So I will not visit every partner I work with every year. What do I do when I'm not traveling in person with them? I'm working remotely. We've all become familiar with remote working over the past 3-4 years. And so that's what I do, a lot of Zoom meetings, emails, voice messaging, anything. I'm doing a lot of educating and research for the training seminar that I am creating and building. The one thing with all the missionaries or global servants with international ministries is we have to raise 100% of our support. Okay? This is why I'm here, sharing my ministry, but I'm also asking that if you feel led as an individual, as a church, as ABW group, as whatever group you're involved with, to support me, to support another global servant whose ministry it pulls at your heartstrings. If education is like, yeah, it's great, but I'm not called to pray for that or financially support, I hope you pray at least. But I understand, everyone has something that pulls at their heartstrings. For me, it's education. For someone else, it's medical ministries. For someone else, it's a different ministry. It's ministering to, it's training pastors. That's what pulls my husband's heartstrings, is training pastors to be better pastors. So you can partner with me through prayer. I definitely need your prayers. All of our global servants need your prayers. You've heard the ministry that I do. There are many prayer needs out there for them, but just for me and my family as well. So financial support. What every missionary has a budget. Every missionary's budget is different. It's a different amount because they live in a different place, their family size is different, and all of that influences their ministry too. All of that influences the size of their budget. So my budget includes my work funds, my ministry funds. It includes health insurance. It includes my salary, retirement. When we lived in Costa Rica and Mexico, our kids attended a private school. So educational needs and funds were included in my budget back then when we lived out of the country. So as a church or a group, you can give directly to a global servant like me or through your region. You can give directly to IM or through your region. You can do that through the website. You can call donor services. All that information I can give you later. I'm not going to give that to you now. The prayer card, I do believe, has all that information as well. Like I've said, who can contribute? Anybody can contribute. Any group, any church. And it doesn't have to be a Baptist church. I have Assemblies of God churches who support me. I have non-denominational churches that support me. And all support is welcome. Because without the financial support, I can't do my ministry. If I don't have the funds in my ministry fund bracket of my budget, I can't make a trip and give that seminar to those teachers. I can't train them in person, which if you've done anything via Zoom over the past 3-4 years, however many years it's been, it's not the same as being in person with someone. Especially if you've had to do a class or a training. It's not the same. And for me, I don't get out of it what I would if I was in person and the person was in the same room as me, teaching, saying the exact same thing. It's just in dynamics. So it makes a difference. When you partner with International Ministries and me through prayer and financial support, you become an integral part of making a global impact on God's kingdom. Your partnership is a testament to the love and unity within the body of Christ, and together we can bring positive change and share God's grace with the world. So join me in this endeavor, or join another global servant. You will not offend me if you decide, if you go on the IM website and you want to look at all the global servants and look at all their ministries and decide, I really liked what Sarah does, but I'm not going to name names. What this person does, I really like that better. I think that's where my support needs to go. I support you in that 100%, because all the ministries that all the global servants do, they are equally important. And I think every single one of us global servants could use more financial support. So next slide, please. I am almost done, and I know that I've gone over my time, and I apologize for that, and I hope it's okay. But I want to conclude with missions matters. Not just because I'm a missionary or a global servant. That's not why I say missions matter. Missions matters because it is the heartbeat. It's just one part of the heartbeat of our faith, where lives are not just changed, but souls are ignited with purpose and compassion. When missions or outreach can be done locally, it can be done globally, we find our lives transformed, our hearts filled with a deeper understanding of humanity's interconnectedness. And together we, as the church, embark on a journey that not only impacts those we serve, but it enriches our own spiritual journey, reminding us that in giving, we also receive. If you've ever been on a short-term mission trip, a lot of times people come home feeling so blessed. Like you did so much, but you also were so blessed. And I remember on my first mission trip when the day before we were leaving, the pastor and his wife came to visit my husband and I, and they had gifts for us. And we knew how little they had to just live off of day to day. They make a sacrifice because in their own life to bless us for coming and blessing them. It's an incredible experience, and it's hard to put to words. But if you've ever gone and you've experienced, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And even if you can't go, you can experience that by being involved with your local church. And so you can go to the next slide. It's just a thank you. I just want to thank you on behalf of myself and International Ministries for the opportunity to come and to share my ministry to schools in Latin America. And I don't know how much I'm over, but I apologize because I know I did go over. So thank you so much. I would love to speak with any of you more after church if you have questions or anything. So thank you and God bless.